Welcome to the CDP, the Commercial Directors Podcast, where we discuss all things commercial directing, treatments, pitching, problem solving on set, and commercial breakdowns. Now you host Evan Swinehart.
3, 2, 1, talk to me.
All right, welcome to the Commercial Directors Podcast. I'm super pumped today to have a dear friend and a super talented director, Kody Kohlman, on. Kody, thanks for joining. How you doing, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. This is one that I'm super pumped for, and respect the hell out of Kody. He's an awesome person and one of the most talented people I know. Kody is a director and a photographer. We go way back. Cody's a little bit younger than me, and he was a photo assistant on some shoots that I worked on 10 years ago for a mutual friend of ours, Willie Peterson, who's a very talented photographer. And it's been awesome to see Kody kind of come up in the photo ranks, but then take it to the next step and really get into video, and to see his style develop and his confidence grow has been really cool. And now he's like one of these people that I look up to and often ask advice to. So really pumped about this conversation, and we're going to break down a really cool spot. So Kody, let's just start off with a little bit of your background. I kind of set you up there, but tell us how you got into directing and kind of how your path to directing came about.
Yeah, cool. It's always funny, like the word director even is, I'm like, it's weird being a director. Like it's such a funny title. But so like, as you mentioned, it kind of started in the commercial world with photo assisting Willie, and just being on set. On some of those shoots, we would have a lot of downtime because motion would be taking up time. And when that was happening, I would kind of watch over and just see what was going on with video. And it piqued my interest, like what our other friend, David Chang, was doing as a DP and what you were doing as a director. And it was kind of a natural progression from there. I had always been interested in video, which I didn't really look at that or realize that until I was already kind of doing it. But when I was young, like I was always filming skateboarding. Like I had a VX1000, and I was always like, I was in videos, but I would film like second angles and stuff. And then I would help with like editing and kind of just like music and what I would now call art direction, which I had no idea what that was at the time, but how things fit together and sequencing of tricks and titles and all of that. But I think all that was kind of like refining my taste, and like really bleeds into what I do now. So I started assisting Willie. Yeah, saw more of the motion side on a lot of those sets. And then David Chang, who's like one of my best friends, was kind of coming up as a DP then. So I started helping him on projects. And yeah, it was kind of just like a natural progression where I started getting my own stills jobs and was making stuff in the motion realm kind of for fun. And yeah, it sort of just like grew from there, and the things that I was making became more refined and a little bit better, and that led to clients kind of catching on to that. And yeah, now it's kind of where it's at.
Do you consider yourself a photographer or director first?
I'll direct DP projects, like very, very project dependent. And I think that is very much the photographer in me, because if you're on just a photo set, you are the director and the DP. You're doing both. You're working with talent, you're behind the camera. It's not like you're handing the camera off to someone. So when I started doing video work, that was like a really hard thing for me to like. It was just like an internal battle where it felt really weird to hand the camera off to someone, especially because I was a bit younger then and didn't fully understand what a director role was, So I actually think of myself more as a director now, but I think I come at most projects from a photography standpoint.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I think it shows in your work. Your work is super graphic and visual. How often are you still directing and doing the photography for a project a lot at the same time? And if so, like, how do you even go about that?
Yeah, it can be really complicated, and there are definitely times when it feels like too much. Um, but that's very project dependent. And there's certain projects that I wouldn't do that on. Um, I do a lot in like outdoor sports lifestyle space, which a lot of that stuff is it's less like directly working with a model and dictating like emotive actions and stuff. Um, and like all it's tough because I have to have like a DP that I really, really trust on those projects when I'm shooting stills and directing. Like I need to be able to hand certain responsibilities off because I have so much going on. So that's really, really important to me. But I would say the like big campaign work, a lot of that stuff has went that direction where I am directing and shooting stills.
Like, I want to hear you describe your style. Like, what is your style?
Oh man. I don't even know. I think a lot of it, there's definitely a lot of pull from my youth and skateboarding. And that's like come into the picture even more in the last few years where I've like revisited who I really am as a person and what really does interest me rather than trying to like replicate other people's work. Um, and trying to be something that isn't really me. So I would describe my work, you know, clients and agencies love to say gritty.
Yeah.
That's the word that gets attached to me all the time. Moody, gritty, dark. Um, but I would say like visceral and fairly ethereal. Like I don't think that they're it's funny because I do some story based stuff and a fair bit of story based stuff, but I'm so much more interested in like a feeling than I am a story. Like I could I could like watch a movie. I like movies that a lot of people dislike because they're like the story doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, yeah, but it feels right. Like it feels good. So I think my work mimics that in a lot of ways.
For sure. And I think that's a lot of, though, like what I strive to do too. And I think what good content does is it should make you feel something, right? So maybe the story isn't like completely spelled out, but like if the images and movement or whatever is making you feel something as a viewer, I think you're doing your job, and I think that's all the content that we want to consume is we want to feel something, we want to be driven towards some sort of emotion.
100%. And I think so many people tie that so closely to story, which like totally makes sense. And that's like the most direct way to get an emotion across is through story. But if you start pulling those layers back and just like removing more and more of the story and letting those emotions that you're trying to get across fill in with music and color and camera movement and styling, I think that's kind of been my approach to like directing and bringing my voice into a project.
And 30 seconds too. It's hard to tell a real story. This is something I battle a lot. Like I feel like people are like, "Oh, you're a filmmaker." I'm like, "Yeah, not really. If I make commercials and there's not really a story." So like
Yeah.
you don't have enough time to tell a story, right? So it's like you've just got to kind of make cool shit, and that's through like what you're saying, like good imagery, sound, colors, camera movement. So I don't know. I think a lot of people might hate to hear that, but to me, that's kind of the case.
Totally. And I think a lot of people would look at that as a negative, but for me personally, like that's a positive. That I like that. You know, I didn't go to school for journalism or like some form of writing. It's I'm we're just cooking with vibes here. Like it's all just like what feels right to me, and it's chaos a lot of the time, but people have clients that I work with have liked it and I continue to work with them. So I'm like, okay, let's just like keep running with this. But to what you were saying, like, yeah, I get these boards for a 15-second spot and they're trying to tell this story. And I'm like, I don't know if my brain just doesn't process it that way, but like, I've never seen a 15-second spot where I'm like, that was a sick story. You know, it's just like, was that cool? Did it feel right? Did I watch it all the way through? Was it interesting? You know, it's not
Right.
like, yeah, it's just a funny thing.
Well, like you said, cooking with vibes, because that's exactly it. Like as a most brands, and a lot of brands aren't doing this, and I think that's kind of a problem right now with advertising. But is you should be creating a brand that resonates with people, so that they just associate their same values with your product, and it's like a part of you, right? Like easy ones are like Patagonia does a really good job of that. Yeti coolers does a really good job of that, where they just make content, and it's kind of like, or like Toyota, like Tacomas, like if someone who drives a Tacoma, sorry, like yourself, like I kind of know what a lot of their values are they're going to be about, you know? And it's the same thing with those other brands. Like so you just got to kind of create those good vibes. But one thing I want to talk about is your style, cuz like this is what amazes me about you is you talked about gritty, moody, and dark. Anytime I have ever said moody, gritty, and dark to a client, they have been like, "Well, not too gritty, not too moody, not too dark." Like those are three words that clients are very afraid of. I think typically, you know, it's like, how do we get brighter? Like we can't show the product in a certain way. So my question is like, you have been able to develop this style and bring it across all your work, and clients are coming to you for that style. And you just seem to be able to put your mark on spots more than anybody I know. So, how do you do that?
Yeah, thank you. Some of that stuff, like there is a fair bit of work that I share that are like in the stills world, like my personal edits from a project that are like maybe the intensity in those tones is upped a little bit. Um, Same with like director's cuts, you know, you always have the option. But in the last couple of years, I have been able to lean into what I think is cool. And I think a lot of that is I've had like some really amazing opportunities to grow with brands and be there kind of along the ride and being like, you know, it's not a change from like 0 to 100. It's like a 15% and then 15 more percent. I'm like, oh, this one's cool. This feels cool. And then eventually you're at like, you know, 85% of where you wanted it to be. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. I've had that opportunity with Ultra to like looking at what I was like doing with them. I've been working with them a long time now, but looking at what we were doing, like I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, in comparison to like this campaign that I just wrapped up, I'm like, I can't believe it. And I was like recently on set on another job, and I walked in New York, and I walked in, and they had their decks for the shoot up on the wall, and this is for like a well-known brand that is looked at as being very cool. And there's ultra images that I shot. I was DPing this project, but there were still images all over the walls of stuff that I had shot. And I was like, it was like a really, I don't know, just kind of a crazy moment to be like, wow, we have come so far with the stuff that we're doing. Um, but on a wider scale project, like outside of that, or like on a wider scale lens outside of like those clients that I have grown with, I think that I just have really dug my heels in to what I like and who I am and kind of what you're going to get. And yeah, I just like I get hired for other stuff, and there's plenty of work that I don't show that is like brighter and like more airy and more standard commercial work. Um, but to be honest, I'm like, I don't know why people are hiring me for this stuff. Like there's someone that you could get that's better at that than I am. So I think just like leaning into who I am and sharing the work that I want to be doing and that I am proud of and I think is representative of me, that's kind of been the ticket for me is just I think a lot of people try to jump and be like, yeah, this is what I like, but I can do this too. And I've went the other direction where it's like, this is what I do and what I'm good at. If you want to hire me for something else, I can do it, but like I'm always presenting like this is how I would take this. If you'll let me, this is the way that I would recommend doing this to have the best outcome for my opinion in my opinion. But sometimes brands are like, no, this is what we're doing. We want you to shoot it. And those days I'm there and I'm like, just you know, that's like a paycheck and I will working with my friends and that's okay.
How often though are you turning down jobs a lot then? Like if you get a job and you're just like, this isn't me, like how many jobs are you kind of turning down that don't fit your vision?
I think I like to have calls before and see how much flexibility there is within the boards and the overall direction. I mean, I would say that I probably pass on, I don't know, 30 to 50% of the requests that I get, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm super grateful to be busy enough right now to do that. I don't
Yeah.
know if that like I don't count on that being forever, but right now like I know what happens when I do too much and everything starts falling apart and the quality decreases on projects that I do care about and then I'm like putting all this energy into projects that I not that I don't care about, but the ones that aren't me, that I'm
Right.
like, this is not a portfolio piece. And I'm playing the long game. Like, I want to put my energy into the projects that I care about to get more projects that I care about and that I want to be doing that I think I'm good at. Like,
Yep.
so I do try to like prioritize being able to put the time into the projects that need the time. And if that means like turning down another job that's maybe even a bigger budget, like I'm okay with that because I think doing the things that you're good at leads to more opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's so awesome too, is like I think that's really hard to not have a scarcity mentality and just take everything in this industry. So, I mean, kudos to you to be able to like really stick to your guns and like, continue to develop your style and only take work that speaks to that. Um, the other question with that is when these jobs come in, I'm curious, like when you get these boards, how often are the boards like exactly what you're shooting? Or people kind of coming to you because it seems from my perspective, it seems like people are coming to Kody Kohlman and being like, "Hey, we want your style. We have this concept. Help us kind of develop it, and then you're running with it." Or is it like pretty boarded, and then you're just kind of plussing it up here and there?
A lot of the stuff I get is not boarded, which is cool most of the time, but can also be really hard and I've like shot myself in the foot too, like getting into post and then everything's presented and in my mind I'm like this is very clear what you're getting, but there's some sort of like disconnect. But I would say a lot of the projects that I get are more of like an overarching, this is what we want to do, this is where we're thinking of shooting, this is kind of like the general idea of what we want, like how do we do this, what do we do to like elevate this and like bring it to life, which in my mind like that's what I want to be doing as a director.
Yep.
I want to be putting my stamp on a project and like it's the client project, it's the client piece at the end of the day. So they're going to get what they want, but like I always want to have like my thumbprint on it in some sort of way. Uh and there's always compromises, like there like it might not be the song that I would have like went with if it were fully my decision, or the color might be like a bit more saturated than I would generally go. But for the most part, I think that I don't know. I think people clients that I've been working with have been trusting of me, and I'm not sure like what to attribute that to.
I think you do such great work that people are just kind of like, let's get out of the way and let this guy cook, which I think shows the level that you've gotten to, which is really great.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, let's talk about a spot. So let's talk about you directed this spot for Timberland within the last year or so. Talk to us about like how did this project come about? Like how did it come to you?
Cool. Yeah. So this was a little while back, and my memory is awful from hitting my head skateboarding too many times. But I wrote some notes down. So hopefully it's all correct. This job came up because Andy Alvarez, who was a creative director at North Face, had moved over to Timberland, and I was in Santa Fe with my wife on vacation, and he I think he just sent me a text and was like, "Hey, I got a job." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll hop on this call." And it ended up being like kind of a long call, and my wife's like, "Come on, we're like going to do something." And I was like, "No, this is like an important call. I don't know what this is." And he kind of like talked me through the job, and the concept had changed a lot to like what the original vision was to what it ended up as. But yeah, I had just finished up a Circle Off campaign for the North Face that he was a part of, and then he had switched over to Timberland and basically kind of wanted to like recreate something similar for Timberland. So he reached out, and yeah, originally it was like going to be with like celebrity talent, like ASAP Rocky was our talent, and we were going to shoot at like a studio in New York, and the concept was sick from the beginning. But it shifted, I think, for the better, like way less stress. And yeah, he reached out, so it all kind of like came through because of him.
Yeah. What was kind of the ask of the spot? Like what were they kind of trying to get to? And
so Timberland is a really cool brand because I feel like they cover a lot of different, like, they're known for the yellow boot. Like that's like what Timberland is. But that yellow boot fits into so many different categories, and they have like three kind of main brand pillars, which are city, like you see Biggie in like old photos of him like wearing the boot, and then the outdoors aspect, which is like less like hardcore outdoor like hiking stuff, but people like out in nature, going for hikes. And then they have the pro workwear category. So basically, like what the ask ended up being was highlighting this boot it was for the 50-year anniversary of the boot. So it was highlighting this boot with unique talent that actually represented the brand in each of these locations, for each of these like brand pillars. Yeah. And then also bringing in the manufacturing into the process as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, let's watch it here.
This is not a boot?
Nah, it's an icon. And icons, yeah, we're bold. Built to get shit done. Anywhere, anytime. Chin up, throw it at me. I'll break through, no doubt. Because icons, we don't stop. Here's to 50 years of having your back, and 50 years more. Wherever, whenever, forever. This is not a boot.
All right, so there's a ton of shots in this 30-second piece,
Oh
and a
yeah.
lot of camera movement and transition. So, how like did you plan all these shots? Kind of like talk us through that. Like how much actual planning went into this, and then versus how much kind of like improv and just seeing things on set went
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah, for sure. Almost all the transitions were planned. I had brought the Mila note up that I worked in and was looking through that yesterday, and it was actually really cool looking back at it because like the transitions are really, really similar to what was in the Mila note. So most of them were planned. There were a few that adapted. Um, Let me open this spot and like,
I can go to it too if you just tell me where.
okay. Actually go to the opening, like the opening scene. Just
Okay.
yeah, keep going, play through there, and then like these. Okay, so these the portraits of everyone up in the front end.
Yep. Yep.
Those were originally just gonna be kind of like the wipe where she's like pushes the camera away. That so that transition into the next shot um with Kyle. Yeah, right there. Like we had that planned. But then while we were shooting that moment with Kyle, I was framed up a little closer and kind of like pulled the camera back and I was like, "Oh, that would be sick if he like pushed, if he pushed the camera away." So that was like building off of what we had planned.
Mm-hmm.
So I like, released one of the tripod legs and just let him like actually bring his hands toward the camera and I just pulled compressed the tripod leg that was closest to me. And then I was like, okay. So we shot those two. We shot the Kyle one after the city one. And then this next one, I was like, well, since the camera's falling back, it would be cool if it like fell forward into our last portrait. Like you get pushed and then like fall back forward. So that's an example of one that like it was all planned, but it morphed a little bit um while we were actually shooting it.
That's cool. And talk about like these locations. So
Oh,
where did you shoot this? How did you get your locations? Because like this shot right here, like is awesome. But I know you, and I this was probably just you went down to the subway. I doubt you had a permit here, so talk about that.
yeah, we actually had like a pretty small crew for this. Um, we were able to get by, yeah, with not too many people. So the locations were super important, especially for the city. Like we really wanted to be like representative of New York City. So I think you're right. Like I don't think we had pulled the permit for the city. New York's actually pretty easy to shoot in if you're like I think subways maybe a little bit different, but if you're on the streets and stuff, like you can get by without a permit for a lot of stuff. Um, but like my wife Lila produced this and she found these insane locations. Like this rooftop that we shot on in New York was like one of the coolest locations I've ever shot at. And we had that like if you go to the tail end of this piece, you can see where she's standing on the building.
Yeah, where was that?
It's like right before all this stuff, I think. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
right there. It's just like so sick. And we were just like in downtown Manhattan on it was actually a photographer had a studio there and he let us access the roof and yeah, we shot like on the streets in front of some skate parks. I utilize like my knowledge of cities because I just like from my skateboarding background. So the city aspect was really cool. And then we shot in the Gunks in upstate for the kind of trail outdoor portion.
Uh-huh.
And we got this amazing, like big warehouse facility in Brooklyn for the outdoor pro stuff where we had one of the creative director's friends come in and like he's an actual tradesman. So he came in and like did some welding, and it's just like this really cool, like grimy warehouse that was amazing. And then for the manufacturing stuff, we went to their warehouse or to their production facility, which they still make all these boots there like by hand. It's crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we went there and yeah, documented all that stuff in New Hampshire.
Did you scout all this stuff? Did you guys have time to scout, or was it kind of just show up and do all
No,
this?
like we scouted, like we would fly in and then scout the day before and then shoot. But like in terms of scouting, like to build out like the whole story, like all the storyboards, like I didn't go out and scout beforehand. It was kind of just like, I think we'll be able to find this thing here, and this shot, like this transition, I'm pretty sure will work. We had the workers in the Timberland headquarters send us videos of all the machinery.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then I was able to like, kind of build some of those transitions out off of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, how many days was this shoot? How many days did you guys have, and how many locations did you go to?
So we had basically the four locations, like Timberland facility, the Gunks, um, New York City, kind of just like overarching all over the city, and then that big facility, the big like warehouse for
Yeah.
the workwear stuff. So those were our four locations. And yeah, securing locations and permitting some of that stuff was like definitely really hectic, but we made it work. We had a lot of time for pre-pro for this, which was like really, really important because a lot of it kind of was unknown and with just like so many moving parts and travel. Um, yeah, it's just like complicated. For the actual shoot, I can't remember exactly. I want to say it was probably about a week,
Oh, that's awesome.
roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's
somewhere between like 7 and 10 days.
because like I think a lot of people are gonna be like, "How the hell did you pull this?" Like they probably think this budget was insane. But talk about, because I know like you work crews differently. So talk about what your crew was for this and how you like to work with your crews.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of small crews. I like being nimble, and I really trust the people that I trust, and I ask a lot on set, I think, but I think the productions that I'm on, crew is they're treated very well, We're not eating shitty food, we're not running these super long days. Like I want people to like be psyched, and I know that I am asking a lot. So yeah, I want it to be a good experience. But yeah, I think we would hire local crew, like we hired like local grip and gaff for New Hampshire when we were in the facility. And then in like New York we had like our stylist coming through like the whole time. But I like being able to be nimble and make adjustments. And when you have 25 people on set, gets really, really complicated doing that. And I just don't think that like more people always equals a better outcome. And I think it's pretty easy to like fluff up crew without any real reason for it. And a lot of this stuff, it's these like outdoor scenes where it's like
Right.
I I just don't see the need for having like a full G&E team like running around for this stuff. Like it is a lot of shots. It's like really quick. No one's like, aside from us right now, no one's
Yeah.
clicking through this thing and looking at each individual frame. And like we had like a full lighting crew and we needed it. And we had one for a Genie team for the workwear day too. because
Okay,
it's like
cool.
all interior stuff.
Because did you DP this?
Yeah.
Okay, and I never noticed this until now that this Lila, your wife, is
Oh yeah,
in
yeah,
this shot. I didn't
yeah.
know that until literally right now. So
So funny.
that's funny.
Uh,
So this stuff you had Genie for.
yep. hmm but all the like outdoor stuff we didn't have a G&E team. It was me, an AC, George Knowles, who I work with on like every project, and he's just like he is the best. He just like keeps me calm and centered,
Yeah.
and is good at like everything that I'm not good at, which is basically like taking care of gear and keeping things organized. uh but yeah, so it's like super small crew.
What about like all these macro shots? Did you kind of plan all these or
Yeah. Yeah. So like
I love this shot.
the push through. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
with
I
the
was really hyped on that. Um yeah, so like a lot of it was just kind of based on carrying camera movement through from like one frame to the next. Like on this teeth shot, the camera's pushing through the teeth and then we carry on to the boot, which then goes into um the lines on the road. So it's like that camera movement moves all the way through those shots.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that stuff was all planned. Like I was like, we can, there's going to be a road with the lines on it. That's not an issue. And I went in. They sent me one of the boots beforehand because I wanted to like look at it, and be like, okay, what are the aspects that we can like use to tie things together? And it's like, oh, the tree. If we get, if we match cut the tree, and it's like, oh, this stitching. If we move the camera, like, with the stitching, that looks kind of like a road. And it was a lot of just like staring at this boot,
Yeah, yeah. No.
And then the aspects that were less like visual, like some of the I don't know what they're called, like the gassets or whatever, the you
Like
know
where the laces go
where
through
the laces go through,
these
like,
things.
yeah, like that stuff.
Yeah.
When those were getting clamped, I was like, I don't know what exactly that looks like. Like I couldn't think of anything that represented that same visual, but I was like, but the audio right there can carry through, and be like a moment that allows to like do, 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 do. So it's basically like when I couldn't think of something visually, or if I thought something might work better um as like an auditory transition, then I would go into that direction. And like same with the stitching at like 8 seconds. That one,
Sure.
yeah,
Yep.
that machine makes like a really sick noise where it's like do 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 do. So I was like, we'll go to a still sequence after that where we match cut the boot in like all of our different locations.
Yeah, did you have to shoot photos for this too?
I wasn't shooting stills on this project, but I
Okay.
wanted to incorporate stills into it.
Yeah.
So I just brought one of my small stills setups and picked stuff off
Yeah,
pretty
that's awesome.
specifically.
Yeah, like that's one thing I was gonna ask you. Like, there's a lot of like, I don't know, just like okay, this stop sign might be a good instance. There's this shot right here. I mean,
hmm
obviously this one was planned, but like you always, there's so much like just like random texture
Yeah.
in here. Like, how do you go about that, or like like what made you like kind of almost like get this like stop sign? You know what I mean? Stuff like that is just kind of those layers, and it's like the cuts in between the cuts almost.
For sure. And that's something where like I'll board a piece pretty tightly, but I'm also leaving gaps where
Yeah.
it's like, so I would say 80% of this was like boarded really tightly. But then there's like these little 2 second windows where it's like, okay, this is room for like freedom. What works here, what plays. Um, like I don't want to be completely tied down to if something isn't working.
Yep. Yeah, this spot has like so much attitude. I guess what I loved about this spot when I first watched it, I mean, I was just like, whoa, that was like so awesome. Is that something that Timberland wanted and asked for, or was it like something you pushed for?
No, I mean, Andy came to me with the creative director. Like, dude has such a good vision and like knew what he wanted. And he wrote the script, which is like so dialed, and I loved it. And then I think a lot of that attitude comes from the VO.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Like we looked really hard for a voiceover artist, and it was hard to find someone that like, because I think a lot of these voiceover artists, it's the same thing with like almost every contractor that I work with. They're tailoring things to a standard commercial project.
Yeah,
And I'm going through like rounds of revisions before a client is seeing anything. And I'm like, no, push it more. I know you have more. So like
yeah,
get out of your comfort zone, like have fun, push it. If I would rather be reeling you in than like trying to like push you further. But it's always that. And all these voiceover artists, like I don't have time to like go through each one and be like, more, more, more. So I can't remember where we found this woman, but we came across her and I was like, it was like, oh, she has like the thing. She's got like the voice for it.
yeah,
Um, and in the record, like let's push that like,
right.
hard. Yeah.
Um, what were like some things that I don't know were unexpected, right? Like no job goes to plan. So kind of what were some things that popped up on this where you kind of had to problem solve and figure something out, or maybe
Oh.
change it up?
Um, I like totally fucked up balancing the gimbal one day when we were shooting the outdoor stuff. Like,
Yeah,
there's a shot at like 14 seconds where like the boot's kind of like floating from one rock to the other.
yeah,
And
right there. Yeah,
dude, it was just a mess. I don't know. I think I was kind of just like stressed or something. And like, I don't know. I just like misbalanced it. And I think we had an 85 on for that shot. And it was like kind of like right at the gimbal's limit. And it was wigging out. And I was just like, I don't know what is going on. Like, I really want this shot. And, as we were driving away, I'm just like thinking about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I never balanced the roll. Cool. Just like dumb shit like that. And that is kind of the stuff that will occasionally happen when you're with a smaller crew, like not having like a
right.
second AC to be like, hey, have you ever, have you thought about this? Aside from that, I think it was actually like, I don't know, oddly smooth.
Yeah, that's
I'm
awesome.
not, I don't know. I think I like to run a pretty like stress-free shoot. I think
Yeah,
it's a lot of just like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. Like we'll make it work. I don't remember particularly being anything like crazy happening on this one. I just remember like locations and like pre-production where like it was just racking my brain trying to like figure out what these moments that like tied everything together were and made everything feel seamless,
right.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
What about this shot? Because this VFX or practical?
VFX. But
That's awesome.
I think the reason that like I tested this at home with like it was kind of funny. I was testing it with like a piece of plexiglass that I bought from like a local hardware store on two Pelican cases. Like just wanted to see like what framing kind of looked like and stuff. And when I was testing it, I realized that if you if you didn't secure the plexiglass like on all sides, it flexed.
Yep.
So like when the shoe steps on, a lot of like, this shot's been done a billion times, but usually people have like a rigid frame around the whole thing. So there's
Yeah.
and really thick plexiglass. So there's no flex in the plexiglass. It just steps and like, there's no movement. With this one, it's really subtle, but he steps and then the plexiglass like distorts down a little bit and
Yeah.
it brings it into the frame a little more, which like when I was testing was not the intention, but I was like, whoa, that like works. Like it just goes a little bit past where you like are expecting it to,
Yeah, totally.
which works really well with the braking.
Right.
Um, so that I was like, oh, let's just do this like this when we're shooting, you know?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, what's your favorite shot in this whole piece?
Let me look through. You know, I
Or like, what was your favorite moment on set? Where you're just like I feel like there's always a moment where you kind of realize like something's gonna be good or suck.
yeah.
Like, did you have one of those on this shoot?
Oh, I'm always like, dude, what is this gonna be? You know, like
Right.
I have no idea. I really like the it's quick. I actually wish we could have used it a little bit longer, but at 11 seconds, um that hard mount to the
This right here.
camera.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
I
gonna ask you
really
about this.
I really love that shot. And like that sequence just like cutting to her after on the rooftop
Yeah.
with Lila and just like I don't know, we were just like in Manhattan on top of like a 70-story building at sunset. It was like, wow, this is a really cool thing that we're
Yeah.
doing. Not as much like this is going to be a sick spot, but more of like this is a really cool moment. And
Yeah,
like
that's awesome.
I remember just being like, this is amazing that I like get to do this.
Yeah, that's great. And
Yeah.
did you plan then this shot? Like you knew you wanted to kind of look through this still
Yeah.
camera?
Yeah. I had that planned because she's like a really good photographer.
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah, so she shoots like a lot of editorial stuff, and she's, I believe, Pakistani, and she's done a lot with like that community.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like like her photography was like so sick, and like that's part of the reason Andy wanted to highlight her uh for this project is because she represents Timberland, and that was like what we wanted with each of the talent. Like, she is a person who would wear this boot. And yeah, just like represents the brand in like a really cool way.
That's cool. Um, what did this spot do for you? Like once it was all done, like did you get, because I imagine you probably got a ton of work after this. Like, did this spot do pretty well?
Yeah, for sure. It was sick because it played in like Times Square and stuff. Like
Yeah.
it was like for like a while it was up, and that was awesome. That was another kind of moment where I was like, wow, this is kind of like a big thing.
Right.
Um, I think it's hard to like directly tie. Like no one came to me and was like, "Hey, we saw that Timberland spot. Like we want
Yeah.
you to do this." But I do think that this was kind of like this era was kind of a turning point in my career.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember watching this spot. It's kind of funny, like too, like, and this is, I think, something like only like people in the industry geek out on, but like,
Uh-huh.
I kind of remember like I was getting ready in the morning and like you shared this, and I was like in my bedroom area, like getting ready for the day with my kids, and like I was watching on my phone, and I just remember like, holy shit, like to me it was like Kody just like totally took another step, and you haven't looked back since. So like that's why I was kind of pumped to talk about this one because I've
Dude,
always loved this spot.
totally. And that was like this was, I've done a lot of stuff with the North Face and Alter. I've done it just this job was a little bit different. Like
Yeah,
um the budget allowed for us to do more with the crew that we needed, and it allowed me to put like a lot of time into pre-pro and like turn down other jobs to like dedicate the time needed
yeah,
to this one. And I like I said, Andy had this really sick vision, and I had a script beforehand, and just like yeah, it's just like the pieces were there to make something that felt really good. and also having like a super super trusting client. Like we basically had no notes on this piece. Like this is essentially our R1.
That's
You know,
insane. Yeah.
it was insane. Like I think there was a note like remove a little bit of the handy cam footage because it feels a little heavy handed, and we took a
Yeah.
couple shots out and it was like, cool, exported, and like we're good to go.
Yeah. Is there a longer form piece of this, or is it just the 30?
No, it's just a 30 for this, but like
Yeah.
could have easily done like, you know, it probably wouldn't be as interesting, but like a minute and a half or 2 minute spot
Yeah.
type thing, you know.
Um, this last question, and then I'll see if you want to add anything on the spot. But like, this tree is like almost too perfect. Like going this match cut. Like, how the hell did you find this tree? Is this
We didn't. That's stock.
okay?
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
was wondering. No, that's great
We were
'cause
looking
it's so perfect.
so hard. Like we looked for so many trees. And it was like I was just like, dude, we're not gonna find this. It's like
Yeah.
way too crazy.
Well, this is the
Um,
perfect place to use like a stock shot, and like
for
yeah, it's
sure.
just you put this little like effect on the
Yeah,
transition that like
yeah,
helps big time. So
yeah. And then also Johnny just like, you know, Johnny Siratek, our colorist, like blending it very, very naturally
oh
with all the
yeah,
other footage. Dude's a
it's
wizard.
so awesome.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you want to kind of talk through that we didn't cover in this spot that you think would be good to discuss?
No, I don't think anything in particular. I just like, I don't know, everyone knowing that this is not like just a me thing. This is very much like a team of people that are so talented that I work with on like every project making this stuff come to life. And that's where I'm always like a director is like a funny title because like, you know, it is what you're doing, but like it's just such a labor of love and like so many talented people making something like this, you know, be like the completed piece that it is,
Yeah, totally.
you
Yep.
know. I've heard you say before, like, I just hire people who are better than me.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's like, you know, that like could not be more true.
yeah. No, it's absolutely true. I mean, I'm a con artist. I just somehow got into this position.
For
Um,
sure.
cool. Yeah, we director is a totally douchey title for sure. Like
It's just funny.
I like remember too, like when I first started my career, I was like, I'm a filmmaker, and the people were like, "What films have you made?" And I'm like, "I'm a director." like,
Still
just,
working, still
yeah,
working on my first film, man.
yeah, yeah. So it's just kind of funny. All right. Well, last thing I have before our lightning round here is
Cool.
I want to talk about your personal projects a little bit because I wasn't going to, but I feel like you've done quite a bit, you know, in the like I don't know, the latter half of your career, I guess,
Uh-huh.
and it's a lot of the work that's on your website. So talk about your personal projects, what drives those, and what's kind of why are those important to you?
Yeah. Um, it's it's been interesting because I'm opening my website now just to look at it. I feel like when I got into video stuff, it was really like I was looking at like Talweg and I was looking at Patagonia and I was really interested in like more storytelling stuff and story-based stuff just because it felt like more approachable, I think, than
Yeah,
like a standard commercial set. Like I thought of a commercial set as being like just like 100 people running around. And I'm like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't really want to do that. So a lot of that kind of stuff um is those projects, they're unless you're doing that all the time, I think they're really hard to get and like don't really, I don't know. I just don't really know how people do them, to be
yeah, yeah.
honest. So I started just doing stuff on my own. Uh and I did one like longer form doc piece on a friend that Rafa ended up buying. And that was a crazy process and honestly kind of like opened my eyes to like what like that kind of work looks like and turned me off from it. And I was like, I'm not really interested in like this story-based stuff, but I wouldn't have known that if I didn't explore it.
Yeah.
Um, so then like my personal projects kind of shifted. Like I did another project for Rafa recently, which like I basically view as a personal project, even
Yeah.
though it was funded fully by Rafa, um, who've also been like an amazing client over the years. But it was a super low budget project, and they wanted to do something that was that more traditional doc approach on this athlete Anton Kripishka, who's like a local runner and cyclist, and basically we're like, can you follow him around the desert for like 3 weeks? And I was
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to do that. He's like climbing mountains and shit. So I just went back to him and was like, I want to do something in this style. Would you guys and like I'll make it work with the budget that you guys have.
Yeah.
Like, and not, I'm pretty sure I lost money on that project.
Yeah.
But everyone got paid their rates, and it was super fun, and it's probably the piece that I'm like most proud of that I've ever done.
Yeah.
So I just like basically pitched them this idea and was like, this is way, way, way different than what you guys were looking for, but would you be open to it? They were, and again, like no real notes on that piece. It was just like, this is sick. This is way different than anything we've done, and yeah, that piece is like went on to win some awards at film festivals and stuff. So it's been
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So I think they're just important to explore like what you want to do and like show, really like release the client reins.
All right, so let's get to the lightning round. These are just quick questions, so we don't have to go too deep. Should
Yeah.
just be kind of quick answers. But first one is currently, like, what directors are inspiring you right now? They can be film or commercial directors.
Yeah, these are like all commercial directors. And I made a little list for all these questions. I'm gonna butcher some of these names, but people whose work I've been really psyched on lately. Lee Powis is in every deck or every treatment that I send over. Nicholas Wojtek his work's fantastic. Britton Callowet
Yep.
from Farm League.
Yep.
And then I love Brandon Kuzma's work. And I've been really hyped on this dude Tucker Phillips, who's like out of LA and just like doing really cool shit. So all them.
Yeah, and I mean, some of those guys I know, and I can definitely see kind of like the similarities in your work. So that's awesome,
Yeah,
and good people to aspire to be.
for sure.
So what inspires you outside of directing? What kind of I don't know, refills your cup?
Yeah, I would say like most of my work comes from or most of my inspiration comes outside of work. Like I'm, I don't know, it's more like emotive, I would say, where it's like, how do we like replicate this feeling that the song gives me, or like, art is always like a big one. Skateboarding is huge. I'm still like very ingrained in the skateboarding scene. So that kind of stuff is always like opening my eyes to other things. Music, yeah, film, just like replicating feelings. I love just like going. I used to just like hate walking and hiking.
Yeah.
And like as I've gotten old, I was always like, oh, I'd rather ride my bike, I'd rather go skate. And now I'm just like, I feel like walking is like such a key to like gathering inspiration and like just like getting like creative energy flowing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
No, it's true, dude. I mean, like, it's funny because, like, I just posted that trail running clip on my Instagram, and I've gotten more into trail running because I have a group in my neighborhood. We're the cool dad run club, and got into running, and people are like, "Why are you not biking?" And I'm like, "There's something about running, and I think hiking too, where it's a different pace than biking. Biking is just like full out, full go, and like I don't really think about anything, which I
Yeah.
love. We're running like I take in way more of my surroundings, and like I just think through problems a lot easier.
Yeah, you're moving a lot slower, especially like if you're mountain biking. Like
Yeah.
that's like a very meditative practice where it's like singular focus, because
Yep.
if you aren't singularly focused, you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
But with running and hiking and walking and like those kind of things, you can just like let your brain kind of go where it wants to go. It's also meditative in like a very different way,
Totally. And
you
I
know?
think it's a good tool to like, there's so many times I've just sat at my computer, like frustrated or trying to solve something, and like it's not going to come to me. But if I just step away and go take the dog for a 30-minute walk, it's
Yeah.
like I come back and all of a sudden it's like, how the hell was this so hard?
No, that's part of what our job is. Like that is like a requirement where it's like you should be like bored sometimes and you
Yeah.
need to like let things settle down. Everything's so fucking fast paced and insane and our jobs are stressful. Like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. You have to take those moments and like leave your phone at home and just go and let your brain do what it needs to do to like
Yep.
recalibrate.
Yeah, totally. All right, so you've mentioned a couple tools already, but what tools can you not live without? So that could be something in pre-pro, production, or post that you're like, it could be something simple, but just a tool that you use on the regular.
For sure, the biggest tool is everyone that I work with. Like that's the thing that, dude, if I like, if you gave me a brief and I had to make the entire thing from beginning to end myself, it would not be a quarter of what it is like without those people. In terms of like physical things, uh Milanote for sure. I
Yeah.
was always trying to do shit in Google Docs. My brain doesn't work like that. It's
Ditto.
like too crazy. And I think Figma is like a very similar layout to Milanote. I've never really used Figma, but that one's huge for me. It's like super visual and like, interactive. Uh in terms of like being on set, I use a ton of filtration on everything. Like so much filtration. I just have like this box of like random shit that I have like on every shoot. Um, yeah, those are probably like the more physical ones.
What's your go-to filter, real quick? Like if you could just pick one, your
Uh,
filter of the month, maybe.
Revar Cine.
No,
Have you heard of them? They're like, I
no.
don't know. They have this filter called Scarf Dust, and it has like little pieces of like I think like an orange or gold scarf
Oh,
in it.
wow. Yeah.
And it just I don't know. It does something. I don't know if it's like specific to like the lenses that I own, but like it just does something that just really works for me. But
That's
I'm like
awesome.
I'm always stacking shit. I have like four pieces of glass in front of the lens like at all times.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Every episode, we have a director leave a question for the next guest. So this is the question from the previous guest, and it is, what is an on-set trick that you have learned from someone on set? So it could be a gaffer, a grip, an audio guy, whatever, but something that's kind of nuanced that you picked up from a team member on set.
I mean I've learned everything. My whole career is trial by fire. Like I've learned
Yeah.
everything I know. I've like learned from other people. I would say definitely, especially with motion, it's like really easy to be disorganized as a photographer. Like way easier than a director or a DP. Being organized is very helpful. That's one thing for sure. Um, and I probably learned like that mostly from like George and Joey Schuessler, who's like, similar to me, like kind of chaotic in the brain, but like his gear is like so dialed. And I'm like, that's a good spot to be. Also, honestly, probably from you, like talking to the client, like having conversations and like making sure people are heard and like understood and feel like they're in the conversation and contributing. Um, that goes really far. Like you want your clients leaving set being like, if you can have a client leave set and be like, that was a really sick shoot and this is going to be a really good project. Like I'm already proud of what we've done. You have such a leg up in post production
So true.
you know,
Yep.
like you're
Yep.
set up for success. And I've seen, I shoot stills on like motion sets sometimes, and I see how like some directors like communicate with crew and client, and I'm like, whoa, that is wild. Like I would
Yeah.
never do that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean it's interesting because I think there's like weird butting of heads that's a lot on a lot of sets, or like
Yeah.
it's like, okay, here's the agency or client, and then it's like the production team, and it's
Hmm.
like they don't gel, and I just don't get that at all. You know, it's
Yeah.
like A, it's their commercial, and B, like we're all working for the same thing, which is to make this project the best thing possible. And like if they're psyched and pumped and feel a part of it, like they're gonna fight for you in post production, you know?
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. And like we were talking about earlier, like I want my thumbprint on these projects. But like if a client's asking for something, it's like, yeah, let's do it. And if it's not in the cut, then it's not in the cut. But at least like
Right.
we tried. I was just this the last campaign I just shot. One of the clients was asking for something, and I was like, okay, like whatever, we'll do it. You know, it had been brought up a few times. It's like this is never gonna go in the cut, and like got sent the R1s from the editor, and it's in the cut, and I'm like, that shot works really well here, and it was
Yeah.
fully the creative director's idea.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, that like that was right,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got this like, I don't know, I guess like kind of new rule that I've been doing, and it's just like one for you, one for me. It's like,
Yeah,
let me do my thing and then I'll get you your thing, you know?
for sure. Yeah.
If there's time, obviously.
Yeah,
And if there's
100%.
not, then we'll only do my thing. Uh, well, awesome, dude. Thanks for coming on. Where can people find you at? Website, socials?
Yeah, my website's just my name, KodyKohlman.com. And my Instagram account is at Kokody, Kody. I don't know, LinkedIn, all that shit.
You're not on LinkedIn. Oh, you are on LinkedIn.
I am
That's
on,
all right.
dude,
I
I'm
just-
posting. I am
I just-
posting on
yeah.
LinkedIn.
That's true. I just actually clicked on your LinkedIn the other day because you posted the boxing stuff.
Yeah. Dude,
So-
I'm newly active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the spots. Send me an email, reach out. I love talking to people. Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All right, that does it for another show. Thanks for watching the Commercial Directors Podcast, and please subscribe to the show on any of the platforms where you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. YouTube's a great place where you can actually watch the breakdown, so make sure you subscribe. Also, give us a follow on the gram at the Commercial Directors Pod, and please DM us there. We would love to hear from you on potential guests you'd like on the show and what topics you want to learn more about. Or you can email me at evan@swinehartco.com, and that's SWINEHARTCO.com.